Hello everybody, welcome to, this is a sort of patch flip / overview of the GForce Software OBE, which has recently had an update. It's version 2 and it's done a lot of things like add PC format, so it's available on PC, also M1 native capability, plus a few other things besides. Well, notwithstanding, one of the big ones is actually Tom Oberheim has been in touch and kind of lent his weight and endorsement to this particular version. And essentially what this is it's kind of a love story, a love letter to the SEM / 8-voice. Dave Spears at GForce Software has an original 8-voice SEM system, which was in fact previously Chick Corea's, so it has some real provenance. And every time I've heard it, it's like, wow. And the thing about the SEM is, if I just do a zoom on one of these, it's a classic module. It is one of the sort of definitive synthesis modules. Deceptively simple, but has an incredibly powerful sound. What they've done here is they've actually taken that and they've added a little bit to it. They've kept the notion of it, but they've added a third VCO and some other velocity and aftertouch. Plus, we've also got onboard effects, which are very lush. Just a stereo delay and a reverb, but really lush sounding, as you'll hear in a moment. So coming out of Zoom, the way this is set up, it's quite unusual in synthesis terms, because each of these SEMs, it represents a voice. This has 8 voices. It has no more anymore, and I think it would probably really chew into your CPU, though I'm running this in standalone mode on an M1, and it's hardly touching the sides. But essentially, each voice, if I play this patch, in this mode, a single note is triggering all of those voices, and as such, each of these voices is a separate sound or a separate tuning. It does sound lovely. I'll take the effects off. It still has authority, shall we say. You can see that you can pan all the individual voices, both upper and lower. It's sort of broken into upper and lower, as well as 4 voices per each of those sections. So what you can do, if I just do, I'll do a quick poly, press the poly button, and I now have just a straight poly voice. Each one is a sawtooth. This is the default. So now what I can do is, if I'm in group mode, these buttons here are kind of the key to it. If you imagine in a group mode, what I'm doing is I'm just able to, let's add decay to this. Take the mod off. So that lovely sweeping filter mode, which is so Obi-like. But I'm basically in group mode, which is that green button. Every time I move, I'm adjusting a separate, them all ganged effectively. If I take it out of group mode, I can actually tweak each individual one, like detune, and then I've got all this granular control, so I can create. And here I've gone a bit too far there on the wonkiness. But each voice is tweakable, and that's one of the things that's both great and also quite challenging when you're working with a synthesizer like this in hardware and in software, is that you've got so much control over each voice. But the fact that you can group and you can offset as well. So if, for instance, I took the let's say I changed the filter across a few of these to different amounts. If I go to offset mode now, when I change the filter, it moves them all, but it retains their relative positions. Anyway, that's the end of the kind of subjectivity, but it is slightly different to what you normally get with a synthesizer. It's an interesting kind of paradigm shift. There's also a drum mode, which basically, if we just take this will do. What that does is have each voice as a separate sound on the keyboard. You see, it's just 8 of them. Also very powerful. But I get over myself. Let's listen to some patches, because that's where the joy of this thing is. So we started with this one. Let's try Oberheim Poly version 2. What's this sound like? I'm just going to take the effects off here because I'm sure you're thinking, oh, it's all in the effects. It really isn't. And it's all down to the individual pans of these voices, which you have manual control over, which is lovely. Anyway, let's try some more patches. It's great for pads, just purely because you can actually create so much variance between the individual voices, just making them ever so slightly different. It almost, it introduces the wonkiness, but gives you control over the difference in the analog. And there's also this vintage knob, which, again, that would vary the filter tracking, the VCO, and all of the things that you would get in an analog circuit as well. Let's try some let's get some bass sounds in here, because these basses are vast as well, and you'll get to see. Let's try another one. Just a saw bass. There's one particularly one, airhead bass. This was monster. Again, look, this is a single voice. We haven't got unison. Let's see what happens if I put unison on. I mean, that's ludicrous. But as you can see, it's just cycling like it would with any kind of regular poly. It cycles through the voices, but you can set that to be continuous. So you would, I mean, I've only got a mono voice, but if I took it into poly mode, you see 1, 2, 3. So you've got all that kind of standard control, and this is stuff that people who are aware or have the 8 voice, or there's a 4 voice variant of this as well, they'll be aware of how powerful this is. Anyway, let's try a couple more sounds. Next patch. Really is impressive. Impressive low end. Right, let's get on some more pads as well. Poly pad. There's some. Actually, if I go here, there's this Blue Nile pad. Third LFO, the third VCO is we're not using it here, but you can use a sine wave, which gives you sort of additional shape. If I went into group mode and I turn that into sine, what am I looking at here? You can hear the thunderous low end that brings in. The other thing that's very cool about the third VCO is it'll run either as an LFO, second LFO, or it'll run in audio rates, and then you can use it to modulate stuff like the filter frequency and various other things. And it really, in fact, I've got some patches that I created here. I think this is FEM filter, which is FM filter, which I'm using. What I've got is essentially VCO3 is modulating the filter frequency. Really nice. One thing to note about this is kind of nice little touch. If you just drag your mouse over it, you get kind of that granular level of control. But if you right click on this, you go in steps, so you can go straight to semitones, which is in fact plus or minus 24. There's a couple more patches in here that may be of interest. This is quite similar. Nice. This is just massively low. Oh my lord, that's got so much bottom. I'll stick these patches up on Patreon in case anybody wants them. And I'll probably create some more, to be honest. This is a split, because you could split the upper and the lower. In this case, I've got a... You can see the point at which it splits here. It's easy to drag, but we'll leave it where it is. Oops. And then... If I wanted to just edit only the top or only the lower, I'm still in group mode and this would affect all of them, but I have got different voices on the top and the bottom. I would lock an entire row, or I could just lock individual SEMS modules in here. But so then I could just basically say, right, I want to tweak the low end on this. I'm using VCO3 to modulate that, but I'm going to do that now. So now I've got... So I can lock... And incidentally, there's another neat feature, is if I then went... Okay, I've locked the top row, but now what I'm going to do is I'm going to load a sound into, let's go for a polymove. I don't know what this is going to be. Let's just go for deep pulsator. That sounds promising. So what's actually happened, because this is locked, it's only loaded that sound into the SEMs that weren't locked. So you kind of start to see how you can load elements. I've still got that one. So I can swap things around. I mean, it starts to get quite mind-blowing when you consider the flexibility that you've got, and it's worth spending a bit of time getting deep into it. Anyway, let's get a little bit more into some patches. Got some lovely pads here. This one was nice. I think this is very CS80-like, from what I remember. Further down. Very nice, like that. I've still got that one flipped. Oh, that's very... Oh, yeah, nice low end on this. Some patches by, I think this might be Geosynths. Nice work by Jamie again. And it's got that thing, you know, when I think I reviewed the OB6 and there was that familiarity, that kind of like, oh, that's the synth that makes these sounds. And this is very similar, a similar sort of feeling to it. You know, that's the synth that makes those sounds. And it's the attention to detail. I mean, you know, I know it's taken them quite a long time to do this, and they are very finicky and particular about this. I mean, you know, it's not, I'm not dissing any other versions of these kind of things, but I do know that there's a lot of diligence and a lot of work that goes into these with quite a small team, and they wouldn't let it out until it's ready. And the fact that Tom Oberheim has said this sounds fantastic is a pretty good endorsement. Again, I'll take the effects off. I mean, yeah, it's not quite as expansive, but it's still got the core quality of the sound there. Right, let's have a look. What else? That's sort of... I'm not quite sure what's going on. I think that must be a pitch envelope, but it sounds like that classic portamento that you could do with this, where all the voices sort of dribble together. I wonder if there is a patch that actually does that. I don't know if it does or not. Anyway, let's get on to beautiful triads. What does that one's? Yeah, I concur. And yeah, I mean, there are maybe not as many modular, it doesn't have a huge mod matrix and that, but I think the idea behind this is just to make it sound as close to the hardware and give you the hardware experience as possible. Let's see, there are some other examples of sounds in here. We'll just go sequence chord, because we do have, there's a sequencer in here, which I'll show. Just a little 8-step sequencer. I'm not quite sure how. I think I need to send it some BPM, right, so I might need to actually set it to be not sync to the DAW and just play it. Interesting. Okay, let's try something else. Chord on the 3s. That sounds interesting. And we'll take the DAW. And we can transpose these. We can set it on various different ways to do that. Let's try. Let's take DAW sync off again. Some other patches. Sequence unison. Oh, I bet this is another geosynth. Let's see what this one does. I bet this is going to be monster. Let's take zoom off just to see how we're endorsing. And I'm playing the keyboard on this. Let's do some splits as well. Bass and brassy split. So these are some examples of the split function. Classic Obi brass. Yeah, there are some really nice patches in here. Again, if you wanted to just kind of get started, just hitting that button, bing, and you've basically got, that is just a mono sem. So let's just get let's just have a listen to see what happens when we do a bit of... just a bit of the audio rate stuff, or we can have the noise from this. We could modulate VCO1 from VCO3. Let's take that out of there, take the mod off, and just go envelope 2. Go to sign. So we can modulate, and if we make this one pulse wave and get into that high frequency modulation of the pulse width, which is kind of interesting. Or we could go into LFO rate sync, which would just give it the... Let's maybe bring it out a bit. Maybe get this up an octave. Oh no, let's go a sixth. Bring the effects in. And again, if we wanted to, I don't have a particularly expansive controller on this, but if I want to go into CC mode, I can map this to, let's see, on modulation 1. So that means that now, I've just played my chord, and I've got Anyway, I'm not going to go through the whole thing. This wasn't really supposed to be a review. It was just to be a sort of like, I can't believe I've not listened to it before. And if we look at the GForce Software website, it's currently on offer, $99 or £99 from 149, and it really, you know, takes your synth programming software brain in a new direction, and I'm sure you'll find lots of sounds. Anyway, that's it. Thanks very much for watching. I'll play out with a little bit more of some patches. See you next time. And the sequencer is just playing the synthesizer expanded module 8, so the rest are just down to this delightful pad. Anyway, thanks for watching.